Welcome back to the Pregnantish podcast, where we always have real talk about fertility. Today's episode is part of our Reality of Infertility series, recorded live with our amazing advocates at the Reality of Infertility event in Los Angeles. This is part of our series capturing reality stars' journeys as they navigate infertility, IVF, and paths to parenthood. Today's episode is supported by Tru Niagen. Developed by Niagen Bioscience, a pioneer in NAD+ and healthy aging research, Tru Niagen is helping people around the world transform the way they age. Use our code EGGS20 for 20% off at TruNiagen.com. People who watch Love is Blind may remember Monica Davis as an intelligent and compassionate cast member on season 7. She was engaged to Steven, but called off the wedding after discovering his inappropriate, kinky text to another woman. Far more dramatic and powerful than this reality TV storyline is a new chapter in love that Monica is in with her partner Zach, and their long journey through failed IVFs and their deep yearning to love a child. In July 2025, Monica gave her large audience online a window into a deeply personal world of trying to build a family with IVF. She shared a reel capturing the needles, the hope, the heartbreak that so many in this community know all too well. Sharing this story has been a life-changing experience, not only for Monica, but for the many she's touched by her candidness. Monica's vulnerability has not just moved her fans, but has helped amplify the message that infertility touches all kinds of people, and that the desire to have a child is yet another great chapter of love. Welcome to the Pregnantish podcast.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
so happy you're here. We've followed each other online, but this is our first time meeting in person, and what a room for you to join. I appreciate it.
It's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start with Love is Blind. I actually watched your season and I was rooting you on, like so many people watching. But how did you get cast for that? Because I've hosted reality TV. I know the reality TV world, but I'm always curious how even people end up on these shows. So what was your process?
Yeah, it's so funny to go back to that time, which feels like a lifetime ago. I love the show. I'm a Bravo girly. I love reality TV. I think the reasons why I liked Love is Blind was very different than other reality TV shows. Like, I didn't enjoy it for the drama per se. I really believed in, wow, like we live in such a vapid, physical is first, online dating, the apps world. And I've dated a lot of jerks. Like, this would be such a cool thing to actually meet a good person, a good guy. And so I had gone through another terrible breakup. I think I was 35 at the time. And most people who end up on Love is Blind, typically someone reaches out to you. They get, I think my season alone, over 100,000 applications, but like 80% of the cast ends up being not inbound applications. It's them finding people. And different from other reality TV shows, they very specifically look for, as best they can, like, you have to have under 10,000 followers on Instagram. They're not really looking for people the influencers of the world, they're looking for people who genuinely think that they could find love through a wall. Season 4 was out. If anyone remembers that, it was the Seattle season. And I was in between jobs, and so I was going to visit a friend in Florida, and we watched the season finale together. It was the one where they did the live finale that they only did one time. And there was a Black woman on that cast named Tiffany. And we were around the same age at the time. She ended up getting married. She's like a wonderful person to Brett. And I was very drawn to her story. Like, I saw myself in her. He didn't have a college education, all these things where she was like, maybe I would have just swiped, but he actually works at Nike and he's an amazing person. So they're still married. And I was just very moved by their story. And on my flight home from visiting my friend, waiting for this new job to start, I started getting a lot of texts and DMs being like, Love is Blind is coming to DC. And I was like, maybe I should apply. So I was on the flight going from Tampa back to DC. I clicked the link and I applied, answered like 80 questions from my phone sitting on the plane. There was one question that was like, you have to fill out a video of yourself. And I didn't have great Wi-Fi. So I was like, I'm just going to submit. They're never going to call. They're never going to pick me. So it was incomplete, and they ended up calling, and it was like a 6-month process, and I ended up going on. So,
Wow. Well, and how did it change your life?
oh gosh, in so many ways. You know, I met amazing people. The people who work so hard to produce the show, the producers. I love my producer. The women from the show are incredible. And one of the great things about Love is Blind is it is filmed regionally. So whether you end up getting married or engaged, or even the girls that you meet in my case, they all live close by. And so that's been wonderful. I have I like to call it an Instagram following that for a very long time felt um, inorganic. Like I just did a show and then people cared about my life and chose to follow. And obviously, since sharing my fertility journey, that's really evolved. It's not so much all of the reality TV fans, but people who feel drawn to my story. And so, like, that has been doing the show led me to this, and it's been the best part of doing the show.
Well, that's incredible. And we've so appreciated that you've amplified through this big platform that probably overnight you woke up with so many new followers. But what prompted you to start sharing the journey? Was that an intentional step or was it kind of more spontaneous? What happened?
I don't think it was super intentional. I'm an open book. Like I think anyone who does reality TV is somewhat of an open book. I I've had parents who have always encouraged me to share and like be proud of the good, the bad, the ugly. And so my partner Zach and I had been trying to conceive for I think a little over a year at that point. We started our first round of IVF. I was like, we're gonna film everything just so we can like show our kid one day. And we filmed every shot, every needle. And thinking back to that time, like I posted it. I put together this reel, music. It was very moving. And I thought that like that was what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be that one post. And then I was going to be announcing that I was pregnant. And then I was going to be announcing that I had and then when it failed the first time, the second time I was like, okay, the second time I'll film not as much because I'm tired and I'm sad and I'm thick and I feel just like not like myself. So we filmed a little bit less, shared that, and thinking that was definitely going to be the last time. And then again and again and again. And by the last time, I don't think we filmed anything, or even the third time, really.
That's such a reality of infertility story you just told because, yeah, I remember taking a picture of bumps ahead on the Brooklyn Bridge walk I did. And I was like, that's going to be my pregnancy announcement. And it was so buried in my phone the first time I got pregnant, I couldn't even find it. It had been so long. Um, how did you and Zach meet? Because you had such a public love story with Steven, and then now you're online and your fans are watching with this new wonderful partner. But
Yeah.
when did you meet and how did you meet and when did you talk about wanting to have a kid together with your partner?
Yeah. It's actually a really funny story. I met Zach on Hinge before I did Love is Blind. So I met him the year before. So in 2022, we connected on the apps. We've randomly lived in the same town. And I say random because I spent time in LA and New York, but I was living with my parents for like a few months in between breakups before I came back to LA. And they live in the suburbs of Virginia. And I found a cute guy who also lived in Ashburn, Virginia. I was like, no hot single guys live in Ashburn, Virginia. They're from Ashburn, Virginia, so they know that that's true. So, anyways, we met, we hit it off. We went on a first date. We started seeing each other pretty casually. I'd just gone through a breakup, which is why I was temporarily with my parents, so taking it really slow. And we saw each other casually for about 5 months, and it just didn't end up working out. So it fizzled out. I didn't think he was really ready to settle down, and so I just like went about living my life. A few months later, literally like months later, the Love is Blind stuff started happening. I did the show that same year. I hadn't seen Zach in 9 months. And I was leaving in early October, I think it was, to go film, October 2023. And September, I ran into Zach twice, right before I left for filming. And he reached out like maybe a week before I left. And he was like, I really messed up my shot with you. If I could ever have another chance at this, like I would give it my all. And I was like, I'm going on Love is Blind to meet my husband. Like, please, no, never, And so, but he made his intentions very, very clear. And so I appreciated that, but I never in a million years thought it would work. So I go and I, get engaged, and then that doesn't end up working out. And pretty shortly thereafter, I reached out to Zach and was like, maybe this is worth another shot. And we've been inseparable ever since.
Oh, and I love that. Do you remember the first time you talked about trying to conceive with Zach, or did it feel fun, exciting? What was that process?
Yeah, I think we started having those conversations about just wanting to have a family together pretty early, maybe a few months in. Zach's 41 now, I'm 38. So we both dated a lot. He's been married before, really kind of knew what we wanted. So we started talking about it pretty early. Um, and I knew he'd be an amazing partner and father and all those things. And so it was interesting because once we started having the conversations, Love is Blind hadn't aired yet, right? We'd been in a relationship for like a year by the time the show aired. There's a gap. And so we were really nervous about what that was going to look like how my life might change. And so we kind of, thank God, we're really proactive about having conversations and meeting with doctors really early on before we knew there was an, an issue, just because we thought once the show airs, that's going to be really fun and cool for a few months. So let's start the process now. So we met with doctors and pretty quickly found out IVF would be a great path for us. And so once the really crazy part of being on a Netflix show started to die down, we immediately started the first cycle of IVF.
And now for our episode Midroll with episode sponsor Tru Niagen. I'm actually at home right now. I just took my Tru Niagen supplement. I take it morning and night, so 1,000 milligrams, which is said to increase NAD plus levels up to 150% in 3 weeks. So why does that matter? What does that mean? We're going to get into it in this Midroll. But first I want you to hear from Carolyn Cossow, a great member of Team Pregnant-ish, who had a very life-changing experience at one of our events and has been incorporating also Tru Niagen into her routine. We first heard about the supplement through a fertility specialist we trust, who said on a cellular level, it's good for ovarian, so egg health, sperm health, healthy aging. So that's why we have loved being partnered with Tru Niagen for these last few years. Here's Carolyn with more.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn. I'm part of the team here at Pregnant-ish. I've been working with Pregnant-ish for over 4 years now, which means I've had a front row seat to the thousands of real fertility stories, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And like so many people in our community, my journey didn't just stay professional, it also became personal. A few years ago, through my work with Pregnant-ish, I had the opportunity to test my AMH levels. At the time, I was 28 and honestly was not expecting anything out of the ordinary, but the results showed that I actually have diminished ovarian reserve. That moment really shifted things for me. It was one of those experiences we talk about all the time at Pregnant-ish, where information becomes power, but also a lot to process. I started thinking more seriously about my future, my options, and what I could do now to give myself more flexibility later. That's what ultimately led me to make the decision to freeze my eggs. As I began preparing for that process, one of the first questions I asked myself was, what can I do to support my egg quality? Now, there's so much out there and it can feel overwhelming, but I kept coming back to a brand I had been aware of for years through the fertility space in my work: Tru Niagen. What stood out to me about Tru Niagen was the science behind it, particularly around cellular health and NAD, and how that could potentially play a role in supporting my egg quality. It felt like a thoughtful, research-backed option as I was heading into a really important moment in my fertility journey. So I chose to incorporate Tru Niagen into my routine leading up to my egg freezing. And I want to be clear, everyone's journey is different and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. But for me, it felt empowering to take a proactive step in a process that can often feel really out of your control. Plus, it was a helpful energy boost in what can be a really physically and emotionally exhausting process. More than anything, this experience reinforced something we believe deeply at Pregnant-ish, which is that access to information matters. Because when you have the information, you can make decisions that feel right for you. And I'm really grateful to brands like Tru Niagen for being a part of that conversation and supporting me on my journey.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. I love the story because I think knowledge is power. And so often, we're not taught, we always say this at Pregnant-ish, we're taught how not to get pregnant, not what we should do if we can't, or learning about our fertility. And that's one reason we exist here. So I love the story that Carolyn shared, and I appreciate what she shared also about Tru Niagen. And I think for us, we believe knowledge is power also with what we put in and on our bodies. So I want to introduce you from our live event, the Reality of Infertility. Mona Rosene was there. Mona is the Global Director of Scientific and Medical Affairs at Niagen Bioscience. She was there at the same event with Monica Davis, the Reality of Infertility, and she's going to share more from this event on Tru Niagen. Here she is.
My name is Mona Rosene. I am the Director of Scientific and Medical Affairs at Tru Niagen. And I can tell you a little bit about Niagen.
But for those who don't know what Tru Niagen does, what Niagen is, I would love you to explain it.
Sure. So Tru Niagen is a form of vitamin B3. So the active ingredient within Tru Niagen is called nicotinamide riboside. And that is a form of vitamin B3, niacin. You may have heard of that. That vitamin is crucial for ATP production, which is energy, as well as cellular defense and repair. When the body is not able to make energy anymore, then that impacts mitochondria. Remember mitochondria, powerhouse, little engines that can. They then, if they're impacted, then they have more dysfunction, more inability in a sense to help with just basic cellular functions. And we have NAD, so the B3 vitamin, nicotinamide riboside, is an NAD precursor. And NAD, you may have heard that's a lot of buzz in the infusion clinics around these days for energy, as you can see. But when your cells don't have enough NAD, then they cannot function optimally. NAD is involved in over 500 different cellular processes. That also includes the oocyte, which is your egg cell, and the sperm cell. It's very important for those functions. I was just reading a study that we just came out this month, actually, and it was talking about when vitamin B3 metabolism is altered, then it shows dysfunction, again, in that mitochondria. But this was specific to the egg cell and to the oocytes. And when you see that reduction, this is an observational study. So they saw in follicular fluid, the NAD was lower. And then, therefore, these were in women who were 35 plus. So, ovarian aging. And it's my understanding it's called a geriatric pregnancy.
Oh, God. Get rid of that term.
I know. I know. I hate that word. But that shows how important NAD is in the cell for optimal cellular function. So what Tru Niagen does is it increases NAD. If you take the supplement with the ones that you all have in your package, it's 1,000 milligrams with 2 capsules. Increases NAD by 150% in 3 weeks. The injections that we have, and we also have IV. When you get IV, obviously it goes directly into the bloodstream, so you have an increase 20% from baseline in 3 hours. And the injection also just supports. You can go. I think they're going to do IM injections probably out there because the nurse is doing it. You're not going to do it at home, so it'll go a little bit deeper into the muscle tissue out there.
Which is so LA. I love that at LA we have let's just have a little wellness moment with Tru Niagen.
Let's all get our alcohol swabs out.
Yeah. Well, I know that, we never say one product, one supplement solves everything. That we don't like the snake oil that we see on social a lot. But for egg health and healthy aging and all these other amazing benefits, can you speak to us more on that note of where Tru Niagen could potentially help?
I am a dietitian also, so I am first and foremost lifestyle. You got to be eating well, you got to be exercising, you have to have all of that in there. Also, healthy mind, healthy spirit, all of that helps get that foundation work first. And then what Tru Niagen can do is when you add it to whatever your routine happens to be, it, as I said earlier, it supports the cellular health and it supports the mitochondria. Mitochondria is so important. You're hearing it a lot more these days, and just they're understanding now that as we get older and the mitochondria begin to lose their function, it impacts all different aspects of aging. It impacts, it could lead to more different age-related health conditions that we're seeing happen all the time. We have a lot of research. We have 45 clinical studies on our supplement. We just had a few of them published. There was one that was published in long COVID back in the fall. All of this type of information about how important NAD plays a role in these different types of function. And now with the egg cell, with the sperm cell, it's so important to keep those as healthy as possible. And, they all become babies at some point, and that's what we want, and that's what we're looking for. And anecdotally, if you Google Niagen babies, you'll see a whole bunch of anecdotal evidence, or not evidence, but just testimonies online about taking that because it's helping to support that mitochondria, keep it healthy.
Amazing. For more or to try the product, use our code EGGS20, EGGS20, for 20% off at TruNiagen.com. And now back to our episode recorded live at the Reality of Infertility event in Los Angeles with a room full of advocates featuring Monica Davis, reality star and fertility advocate, sharing her journey as she tries to conceive with her partner, Zach. And it's always so hard to capture an infertility/fertility journey for everyone in this room now when I'm like, you have 1 minute, what is it? It's so hard.
Yeah.
But how would you capture it for those who don't know your fertility journey story?
So we've been trying to conceive for 2 years. Our diagnosis continues to be unexplained infertility. Across the latter 8 months of last year, I did 4 rounds of IVF back to back to back to back. I was 38, was 38 at the time. And so doctors thought, you'll be lucky if we get 7 eggs each round. We got 90 eggs. So on average, that means we're getting a little over 22 eggs per retrieval. Those 90 eggs resulted in 65 of them being mature. So each round just filled with so much hope and excitement. And those 65 mature eggs resulted in 29 fertilized embryos. So our fertilization rate is pretty low. It should be around 70 to 80%. We're 29%, something like that. But 29 embryos, that's a lot of chances of hopefully one day being able to be parents. And out of those 29 embryos, we just struggled to get to the stage of a blastocyst. So we finally, on cycle 3, got 1 blast, and that blast came back PGTA normal, and we call it golden. So our 1 golden, and golden is in the freezer. So
yeah.
And I've also done a mock cycle very recently. I just did a mock transfer cycle, got the results of that last Monday. So that's the most recent step we've taken.
Wow. Well, we're sending you all the good vibes for golden, but it's such a long, hard journey with so many steps you never expected. What surprised you the most about the endless, needles and appointments and blood draws? What surprised you the most?
I feel like IVF is a journey of surprises. Just when you think you learn something new. So there's been so many, but I think the biggest surprise early on was I thought I knew a lot. My sister did IVF multiple times. Some of my closest friends have done it. And so I went in with some knowledge, and I'd never known anyone who didn't get a blastocyst. That threw me. I didn't know. I had no idea that was an outcome. I was like, maybe I won't be able to carry this baby. Maybe the transfer will fail. I'll have a miscarriage. No, there's so much to do. But getting 33 eggs your first cycle, and then getting a call saying we can't do any of the things we thought we were going to do, was shocking to me.
Of course. Yeah, these are these moments you could never have anticipated. In terms of your proactivity to see a fertility specialist at the very beginning, to get the information in, when you're actually in it does look different. And only the people who've been through it know that. How do you keep hope alive? How do you keep going through these setbacks and not having a blastocyst or anything that surprises you? How do you keep going with hope?
Yeah, I think I'm so lucky because my platform, my following, has allowed me to connect with, when I say thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around the world. It has, and they share their stories, and it is so inspiring. It keeps me going. I also have an amazing partner who's literally picked me up off the floor and just been by my side. And so, I look at my life and I'm like, there was a time where I didn't think I'd find a partner that I really loved or that I was really attracted. Like I have so many things. We just bought a house, and I just try to find gratitude in the things that I do have, while giving myself space to grieve this thing that's been unforeseen and really, really, really difficult. But it's definitely the community of people, and sharing and hearing their stories, them sharing their stories, that keeps me going.
Yeah, that the community, I think people underestimate that power. What do you wish you had known in terms of just general fertility? Or we were so underserved in
Yeah.
this country anyway with the right fertility education. We always say that at Pregnantish, we're told how not to have a baby, not what happens when we can't. What do you wish if you could have gone back and told this teenage Monica or young adult Monica? What do you wish?
There's a few things. First and foremost, in my early 30s, I decided I wanted to freeze my eggs. I was living in Los Angeles. I, had been in sales for years. I was making good money. I could afford it. Very fortunate to say that. And so I took the steps to start that process and was with a really incredible doctor in the Los Angeles area and basically ran a bunch of tests and was told, like, I remember she was really on the fence. But at the end, she was like, you don't have to do this. You don't need to freeze your eggs right now. Like, you're going to be okay. And I remember saying to her, I can even afford to. And she's like, just wait, just don't. And then I went back a year later, ran the test, everything looked good. It's like, baseline levels. And then life happened, went through a breakup, moved across the country, did a reality TV show. And next thing you know, it had been like maybe 2.5 years since I did those tests. And then when we attempted to try, it was like everything had changed so quickly. So quickly. It felt like it was so quick. So going back, I mean, I'm really loud and proud about this. Like, I wish I would have frozen my eggs. And then once I started the process of IVF, I think so many people can relate to this feeling of like, you feel like you're running out of time. So it's really hard to want to take a break. Like I just want to keep going. Every year I'm getting older. It's an egg quality issue, So, but I wish it was very hard for me. The process of IVF, like so many people, but was very hard for me. I don't enjoy it. I'm so lucky I have access to that kind of care and science, but it's been very hard. And so I wish I would have just taken a beat for my own like mental health and sanity and came up for air. I mean, 8 months, 4 cycles. So
That's exhausting.
yeah, it was a lot.
Well, also, I think we lose ourselves. We embody infertility, so many of us, and it becomes our identity when we're just trying nonstop. And you can lose yourself. How do you make space for who you are outside of a fertility journey or an infertility journey?
Whew. I think that's what I'm starting to get back to. I'm like, I really don't think I can actually speak to profoundly to that because I lost myself. It became my brand online. It became my identity. It became, people come up to me at the gym and they're like, we know you have your doctor's appointment on Monday. We're thinking about you. And I'm so grateful for it. Like the fact that they even know that, but you have to learn how to, I'm the girl that very easily can burst into tears. So like, if you're going to share, you have to be prepared for that for any moment, right? And so it has become a huge part of my life. And so after our third cycle was the one where we got golden. So we decided to try one more time because they figured it out. They cracked the code. Let's, maybe that transfer is not going to work, or we'd love to have 2 kids. So we did it one more time, and that was the most devastating cycle because we got seroblast the 4th time. And so after that, I was like, I am done. Like, I want to go back to the gym, and I want to be able to work and not be thinking about the calls that are coming in from the nurses or the doctor. Like, I've spent this year just taking a step back, and the mock transfer cycle has been really, I don't know, it's felt way less heavy. And so I feel like I've made progress and I've learned things without feeling like I'm on the brink of losing myself. And so this year we're going to Golden's gonna stay in the freezer for the summer. We're gonna go to Europe for my birthday. We're gonna like just take a minute and hopefully this year when I feel really good, proceed with that transfer. But I need a break.
I love that. Breaks are so important. How do you navigate having a break when you're so public and people are saying, "Hey, Monica, what's happening?" So here's the thing about sharing, and anyone listening knows, you share, and it's sometimes very cathartic. But there are moments you don't want to share, and people keep asking. How do you create boundaries? How do you respond? Any advice there?
Yeah, I think you just have to really be as authentic and genuine as you possibly can. Like for me, sharing versus not sharing has always come very easily to me. It's not something that I overthink. It's either I want to or I don't. And I think sharing can become a very like curated process, which is so not me. Like I can't spend forever on my lighting. Like I don't care. I'm just sharing, and it feels easy to share in that way. And yeah, sharing, like the response I get from sharing motivates me to share. But I just think naturally I really do have, I think, pretty good boundaries.
Well, also, I think you're raising something really true, which is we have to check in with ourselves. Some of us are okay to keep sharing, it's the way we process.
Yeah.
And others, if your chest is tight and you're dreading seeing someone or being asked, yeah, create that boundary. When you think of your future with Zach and maybe Golden, hopefully Golden, are you envisioning this? Or are you not putting any pressure to imagine the future? What does that look like?
I'm imagining the future with a family. I've been fortunate enough to have conversations with people all over the world, like I said earlier, who've reached out. I mean, people who are in the space of like fertility hypnosis and like just Chinese medicine, and people who are like, I'm happy to hop on the phone and talk to you. And so for me, through those conversations, I've learned that there is power in like continuing to believe and hope and see it and say it out loud and envision it. And so I'm still there. And I really do. I know somewhere or another, like this journey has taught me that I've always wanted to be a mom, but like now I know more than ever that I will be a mom and I'm going to be a really great mom.
Yeah.
And so I am going to continue to hold that really close.
Yeah, of course. I used to, when I launched Pregnant-ish, I went on national TV and I said, I don't know the how, the when, the where, the why, but I know the what. I will be a mom. And part of why I shared it so boldly was to hold myself accountable, to find a path. And that didn't necessarily mean my egg, my uterus, my genetics. It didn't even mean necessarily raising a child. I actually didn't know what that meant. I just needed to say it out loud to be accountable to my dream.
Yeah, I love that.
So you can relate to that,
Very
I'm
much
sure.
so.
This is a love story. I started my career giving love advice, and people say, "Oh, you left that to do fertility stuff." I always say it's still a love story. So the love you have for a child you haven't met is still a love story. You're still involved, speaking of love and Love is Blind. You're still involved in that world. When I spoke to you, Monica, recently, you were flying in for a reunion of some sort.
Yep.
So what's happening with that, like in that world for you?
Yeah, I mean, they just finished their 10th season airing. And so it's just an incredible network family of people who have gone through this wild experience of, signing up for a show where you're dating through a wall and maybe getting engaged and then married within weeks. And so, like last fall, I was out in LA doing a podcast with, it's put on by one of the folks from the show who's really popular, AD, if you know her. I was just at the reunion, which was filmed in Atlanta. And yeah, there's a lot of really exciting things coming up, and they've continued to keep me like as a close part of that. And one of the coolest things about it is they've really included Zach as well. Like a lot of people who didn't end up in relationships on the show, it's hard to find room for everyone in this space. And like they include him, which has been really great. Makes me
Well,
wanna go to everything.
I'm not surprised you're a fan favorite.
Oh,
No, We so appreciate that you shared your story, your truth, your journey on the Pregnant podcast. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much for having me. It's an honor.
So Monica, for those who want to find and follow you, how can they do that? Where I know you're all over the socials, but how can they find you?
My handle on all platforms is at Monica Jade Davis, like the color, Jade, one word. And I'm on Instagram and TikTok and all places. So,
Well, we're going to be following along. We love that you speak your truth and you share your journey. Thank you for being on the Pregnant podcast.
thank you so much.
And thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of Pregnantish, where we always have real talk about fertility. Until next time. Yay, you were awesome. I knew it. Thank you.